Well, guys, in a year where summer is basically canceled, it seems like it might be a dry season for the entertainment industry, but thankfully we still do have a lot of TV to look forward to regardless. So with that said, with shows to talk about, that means there is nothing precluding me from doing my top 10 shows of summer 2020. We got it all on UHF. Kick up the sneakers. So right off the bat, this summer I will say in terms of TV, it's not nearly as crazy as it usually is. There aren't that many returning shows coming out. I know like Euphoria was supposed to come out and obviously that halted production because of coronavirus, and some of my most anticipated actually of the summer that probably would have qualified are no longer coming out in the summer. Genius Aretha, Nicole Kidman's show The Undoing, a bunch of shows were delayed, but regardless, there, like I said, there still are quite a few shows that I am still looking forward to, but compared to last year, this is a significantly smaller list. It's not a top 15, it's not a top 20, it's a top 10, because there aren't as many entries. But that's also a good thing because that means the ones that are coming out, it wasn't as hard to make this list as it usually is because there are so few shows coming out, and a lot of them actually do look pretty damn good. So we're just gonna get right into it. Like I said, there's really not too many returning shows on this list at all. In fact, I think there's only one, because there's really, as usual, while there are some shows coming out that are returning, the issue is that I haven't finished them. So things like Dead to Me Season 2, Homecoming Season 2, Rami Season 2, these are just shows I never got around to. So unfortunately, that's why they're not going to be on this list. Not saying I'm not going to watch them. In fact, I do actually plan to binge all of those shows prior to their new seasons. It's just because of the fact I haven't finished them, I don't think it would be fair to put them on this list. So they're unfortunately, they missed the list for now, but I do still have a top 10. But before we do get into that, I do have a couple honorable mentions as well. Starting off with Hightown, Love Life, an HBO Max show that I'm hoping is really good, but we'll have to see. This one you guys might be surprised about, Looney Tunes cartoons. I mean, look, I love the Looney Tunes, definitely, but I just couldn't fit this on my top 10. I think it definitely is going to be really fun, though. I'm excited to see Looney Tunes back, as is everyone. Snowpiercer, which I'm very wary about considering that Bong Joon-ho isn't really that involved with it, and I don't really know if it's the most necessary show in the world, but I guess we'll have to see. Trying, and then these two shows barely made the list. Like, they just made it. They would have been my 11 and 12, but again, because this is a top 10, they did not make the list, unfortunately. One of them is Solar Opposites, which, again, came so close. I really wanted to put this on the list. And on one hand, I'm very excited for it. Justin Roiland, I'm a huge fan of Rick and Morty. But on the other hand, this kind of feels like less of a show that I would watch and more like something we would see on one of those like interdimensional cable episodes of Rick and Morty, and I hope that's not the case because it does look like it's a fun premise, but I am worried it is going to get tired after a while of just the aliens, trying to go about, human technology and things like that in their own way. I feel like that's a concept that's been done to death, and while I have a lot of faith in Justin Roiland, I'm just worried that that's not going to be quite as fresh as I think it's going to be. But the fact that he's as heavily involved as he is, that definitely does have me very excited. And then the one that just came so close. It was literally in my top 10, and then I watched something else and it knocked it off. Space Force. Look, I really want to put this in there, but there isn't a full trailer. There isn't a lot for me to say. Like, this show definitely is going to be one of the best, but I mean, it's Steve Carell. It's in space. I believe John Malkovich is also involved. And it's a workplace comedy, and we know that Steve Carell is already great at that, so I feel like it's going to be really good. I feel like that's enough of a reason to definitely look forward to it. But again, it barely made the list. I really wanted to put it on there. It just, unfortunately, did not qualify. But with that out of the way, we're now going to get right into it, guys, starting off with my number 10.
I am so sorry.
It's fine.
You know what? This is a bad idea. I'm sorry to waste your time.
So this one, you guys are going to be a little bit surprised, is probably a little bit lower on the list than you were expecting. And look, while I am actually very excited for Love Victor, there is definitely a bit of a cause for concern. But the thing I think that's really going to work about this show, and the things that intrigue me about it, is mainly because of how much I love Simon. I think that's a fantastic film. I think what that film did for, you know, people that have a hard time coming out and things like that, I think that film was revolutionary in that way. I think it was just a really well written film, but I also think it was a really good film about adolescence and, you know, just a lot of high school relatability and things like that. And I think that's one of the reasons that people connected to it as much. But it isn't necessarily a film that I ever expected to have a continuation. It wasn't really a film where I watched and said, okay, I'd like to see a sequel of this. I mean, I wasn't necessarily against it, but it wasn't a film that I was like really pushing for. So seeing them do this follow-up series, I like that it is focused on a different character. I think that's a cool idea. And I like the fact that this guy was inspired by Simon and he's gonna like take him under his wing. I think that's a really good idea. And so I think there are some really good ideas there. Again, it's kind of similar to Snowpiercer though, where I'm just not sure if this show is going to offer as much as we think it's going to. With Love, Simon, I was looking forward to that film, but I wasn't hyped out of my mind, and so it really exceeded my expectations, whereas with this, I have pretty high expectations coming into it because of what it's based upon, of what it's, you know, following. So I feel like there's a lot of potential for this show to be really good. Also, it's also on the list very much because, as we know, this is a show that Disney Plus, for some reason, decided to pass on because they're low-key homophobic, as we know. So there's that, and I'm hoping that this is a show that was very much worth the wait. I'm hoping this is a show that we watch and we're like, what the fuck, Disney Plus? Why would you pass on this? Why wouldn't you put it on there? Because I feel like there is definitely, like I said, a lot of potential for this show, but there is just that worry that it might not be the most necessary thing in the world, but with a cast behind it, and I like that Nick Robinson is still narrating it as well. I think that's definitely the right move. It's a good way of keeping him in the show, but not having him be the entire focus either. So I like the way they're going about that, and I'm excited to see what else they're going to do with the show overall. So for the most part, I definitely am looking forward to Love Victor, and that is why it is my number 10.
Here at the midpoint, a park that's so central. The name's not that clever, but screw it, whatever. It's central in my heart.
Central Park is exactly my kind of show. If you put anything to music, as you guys know, I'm there. Any sort of musical thing, I'm very much into, and this seems like a show that's going to be right up my alley. And look, Apple TV Plus has really been struggling. I don't think there's any question about it whatsoever. They really have been struggling to get a show off the ground. A lot of these shows come out, either they're critically panned so nobody watches it, or they just get completely underlooked and nobody not bothers watching them because they're just not taking the streaming service that seriously. But this seems like a show that I feel like could definitely have a very significant fan base. I mean, the biggest reason is because it is from the creators of Bob's Burgers, and I know there is a huge fan base for that show, and so I think there's definitely a lot of potential there. But then you also look at the cast here: Josh Gad, Kristen Bell, you know, Leslie Odom Jr., Daveed Diggs. I mean, you got a real stellar cast here of people that are seasoned in terms of musicals. We know Josh Gad can sing. We know Kristen Bell obviously has a really good background with that, you know. So you had Titus Burgess as well. You have a really good seasoned cast here that I think is really going to elevate the show overall. Yes, the premise is very simple. It's this family that runs this Central Park, and then this lady comes in and tries to gentrify it and things like that. So yes, we've seen this done before, but I feel like the way it's being done here, it seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. I think the show definitely does have a lot of potential. The fact that Fox passed on it, though, again, that's a little bit of a concern. But besides that, I think there definitely is a lot of potential for the show. The fact that Josh Gad is also a creator behind it and he's one of the main characters, that also gets me very excited. There's just a lot lot to really look forward to here. I think this show has immense potential. I think at best this could end up being a really fun and very entertaining show that I think it's probably going to entertain me. I mean, just the song that we heard in the trailer alone, that's telling me that the songs are probably going to be really good here. They're going to have some really fun musical numbers and probably hopefully some really fun comedy along the way. And especially now that we've lost BoJack Horseman, I'm really itching for that new animated show that is really going to sweep me off my feet. And I don't know if Central Park is going to necessarily do that, but I do see a lot of potential in the show. And overall, I think this is the exact kind of show to release in the summer right now. So I really do hope this is one of the bigger hits for Apple TV Plus. I definitely will be tuning in. And for all those reasons, it's definitely my number 9.
You know you can walk on water whenever you want.
No way.
So this one literally comes out today, actually, like, well, tomorrow technically, but like Amazon always puts out their shows like earlier at night, so I'll probably end up watching the first episode of this later today. Upload is a show that I am definitely very excited for. I think there's a lot of potential here. The whole concept alone is very intriguing. The fact that this guy dies and then no one actually dies, you know, death is pretty much, death is pretty much just a metaphor, you know. You're basically, you go to this future where you're able to upload yourselves into some kind of afterlife, and so you go about it that way. I think is a really fun idea, and having Robbie Amell as the star, who we know is a very charismatic actor, but I just don't think is one of those actors that's ever been as utilized well as he could have been, seems like a really fun choice, because I think he's going to do a really good job here. He looks like he's having a lot of fun. He looks like he understands just how silly and ridiculous a lot of this is, and so I think that's going to be a lot of fun as well. But I also am looking forward to seeing his, you know, girlfriend Nora, who, you know, is someone that is this person that greets him in his version of heaven, and she has to try to work her job alongside him and things like that, and how she's going to be able to balance all of that. I think there definitely is a lot of potential. I think the world building here looks very strong. I think the satire looks very strong, and I just think the concept overall, it's really different. We've seen premises of the afterlife before, but this isn't really something we've seen quite like this. I mean, definitely I've seen shows that are similar to this where people die and they go in a different version of the afterlife, like we just had The Good Place and things like that, but this show seems like it's doing something wildly different, and so that definitely has me excited for sure. I just think the show looks like a ton of fun. I think it has a lot of potential behind it, and definitely for that reasons, it's absolutely my number 8.
They're cheats.
It isn't cheating.
I think he's cheating.
Didn't cheat. Who wants to be a millionaire?
Look, I know the trailer for this one was pretty short and didn't really reveal a lot, but just from the premise alone, makes me think that Quiz could end up being one of the best miniseries of the entire year. I mean, the whole premise of this is just one that I am so compelled by. The idea that this guy, he wins all of this money. He really, you know, he wins big on this quiz show. It seems like he's done an excellent job, but then he's accused of rigging it and that he had people helping him out. And, you know, we've heard stories about this a lot, that someone that ostensibly won a game fairly might not have won it as fairly as we thought they did. They might have actually had some help from outside forces. They might have actually cheated their way to do that. And so I think there's a lot of potential there for sure. I think having it only be 3 episodes is perfect. I think that's the perfect length of time to really delve into this. Seeing how he's going to handle this whole situation, which I do believe is based on a true story, but I don't know really that much about that story at all, and I really don't want to. So I think there's definitely a lot of potential here for this character. You know, what's really going to happen to him. The fact that he wins like £1 million, but then he doesn't really know what to do with it, and if they did cheat their way, and how his wife's gonna help him cover things up. There's so much potential in the show. It's one of those shows that the more I think about, the more I'm just endlessly questioning, like, how is this scenario really going to play out? How is this really going to work? How is he going to get out of this situation? And again, I don't really want to know what ended up happening to him in real life because of that. It's a show I want to kind of go into as blind as I possibly can, just because the premise alone already has me very much hooked, and I hope and I think that that's going to be enough to really get me into this show. I think there's just a lot of potential here. I think the casting of everyone is great. Michael Sheen seems like he's perfectly casted as this host, and how it's going to affect him too, because he also maybe knew about it. Maybe he's accused of helping him cheat his way. So again, this is a situation that really does affect everyone, and I'm excited to see the way that really does play out here. So pretty much ever since I've heard about this one, I've been excited for it, and just as we've gone on, it's only gotten closer and closer to one of my most anticipated shows of the entire summer for sure, and definitely sits very firmly at number 7.
Promise me, Dominic.
I'm gonna get you out of here. I promise.
Now, this was a show that wasn't supposed to be coming out this summer. This was actually supposed to be coming out, I believe, Monday, like this week. But because of, world health concerns and things like that, the show that was supposed to come out, The Undoing, was delayed, as I said. So now we have I Know This Much Is True. And to be honest, I'm not too upset, because I feel like this is definitely a good replacement for sure. I think there's a lot of potential with this show. Just the idea of Mark Ruffalo playing two characters, and he's playing these twin siblings, is a really fun idea. And I think it's a really good idea. It's going to be a really good acting showcase for him. Mark Ruffalo is a fantastic actor, and I feel like he doesn't really get to show that a lot, and I think this is going to be one of those instances where we're really reminded just how good he can be when he's given the right kind of material, and I'm really excited to see what he ends up doing here. The whole premise of this show, how they're dealing with things, but also the fact that one of the brothers is treated to an asylum. One of them is more straight edge, while the other one is a lot more paranoid and a lot more erratic. I think there's a lot of places that can go for sure, and I think, like I said, just the interplay between the two is going to be really, really great to watch, and I think Ruffalo is really going to impress all of us. I think he's going to give one of the best performances of the year for sure. And then you look at the supporting cast here. You got Rosie O'Donnell, Melissa Leo, Juliette Lewis, Aisling Franciosi, Catherine Hahn, Imogen Poots. I mean, just so many amazing actors within this show. There's so much potential for where this concept can really go. The way they're really going to dissect the relationship between these two. There's clearly a lot that went down in their past as well, and I think we're definitely going to get into the nitty-gritty of that for sure. And Rosie O'Donnell really looks like she's going to do an excellent job here. Just everything about this seems like another really intriguing miniseries from HBO. Anything to get their hands on lately, I am 100% down for it. As you guys know, I really do think they are, even with all these streaming services coming out, they still, I think, are the GOAT of TV right now in terms of, just constant. They're just so consistent with what they do. They're just delivering heavy hitter after heavy hitter, and I think I Know This Much Is True is definitely going to be hopefully another really great miniseries for them. I think it has tons of potential for sure, and I hope that's exactly the case. I see a lot of potential in the show, and I just hope that it very much delivers, because I think this is going to be a really, really great one for sure. So definitely, I Know This Much Is True very much belongs at number 6. All right, guys, so now we really get into the stuff that I am the most hyped for. This is the stuff that even before the coronavirus was a thing, these are shows that I was very much interested in. These are shows that were very high on here, and even if things like Euphoria and, other shows were still coming out in the summer, I very much do feel that these shows probably still would be somewhere in the top half of this list for sure. So we're going to get into right now with number 5. All right, so number 5 is the only show on this list that does not have a trailer out yet, doesn't even have a release date out yet, but was recently announced to come out in the summer, and that's season 2 of The Politician. And look, if it wasn't for that, some of these other shows might have qualified, and you might think that this is a little bit high on the list, especially considering that I didn't love the first season. I really liked the first season, but I didn't love it. But as you guys remember, the last episode of The Politician, I thought was more intriguing than the entire first season. The way things left off, I feel like we are in for one hell of a second season for sure. I think there is tons and tons of potential here. And the way that Ryan Murphy is teasing what's going to happen with Peyton and him battling Beth Midler and Judith Light on a constant basis. I mean, just the fact we're going to have them in this show as main characters, that alone has me very excited. I can't wait to see what they're going to do with that. There's a lot of potential for where the show can go, and what it seemed like, especially from the way things left off towards the end of the first season, it seems like the supporting cast is going to have a lot more to do here as well, and also the fact that Peyton's a lot older now and they can get into some more mature storytelling, and I'm excited to see where they're really going to go with this second season. I think Murphy said it's only going to be 7 episodes this time around, which is interesting. He's doing less episodes now, but I'm just happy that this is one of the only returning shows that was able to finish things, before this whole pandemic arose, before that was even a concern. I'm glad that he was able to wrap this up. He already has so many projects in the pipeline anyway, and he actually does have another one that we'll be talking about. This is not the only appearance of Ryan Murphy you will see on this list for sure, but considering how things left off and the fact that I do really like a lot of these characters, I just want to see them have a lot more to do, and it seems like that's going to be the case with season 2, with especially McAvee and the McAvee and Alice playing a much larger role in this season. I just think there's so much more that we can delve into here. I think this is going to turn The Politician from a really good show to one of Ryan Murphy's absolute best, if he handles this as well as I think he's going to. Again, there's no official release date yet. He said it's coming out in late June. I very much trust his word on that, so that means it is going to come out in the summer, which means it absolutely does qualify. So again, even though there's no trailer, there's no poster, there's no nothing, there's just an announcement, based on the last episode alone, this is absolutely one of my highest anticipated of the entire summer. So absolutely number 5 is season 2 of The Politician. Cannot wait to see what else the show has to offer.
Do not worry. All is bliss in the court of Catherine the Great.
Touche.
Do you mean touche?
This is science. Enjoy.
From the moment that I saw the teaser for this show, I knew right away that this was going to be one of the best shows of the entire summer. And I really don't see how, and look, there are some shows on this list, as you can tell, I'm a little bit skeptical about, but The Great is one of those shows where I do not see how this show can fail. I mean, look at just think about it. You have Elle Fanning as Catherine the Great. What an excellent casting. Elle Fanning is such a versatile actress in that way. She's so good at playing these kind of characters that are very conniving and things like that, and I'm really excited to see what she does here. But the real standout of the show for me absolutely looks like Nicholas Hoult is going to absolutely kill it here, and especially the fact that it's written by one of the writers of The Favorite, and we know how funny Nicholas Hoult can be. I'm so excited to see how this turns out. Holt is one of those actors that I absolutely love, but I just don't feel like he's ever utilized. This show seems like it is absolutely playing to his strengths, and this is absolutely the kind of role that he should be taking on more often. I just cannot wait to see what he's going to do here. He looks so fun in this role, and again, I didn't watch Helen Mirren's Catherine the Great, but this looks far more interesting to me because it's doing a good job of satirizing just the relationship between these two. The fact that Catherine had to deal with this just ridiculous and just zany husband all the time who didn't really respect her, who constantly was taking credit for things. These two clearly did not have that great of a relationship, but she still went about it. She still tried to do her best. I think there's a lot of potential for this show as well. The satire here looks like it's going to be really great. The show looks absolutely hysterical. Again, the fact that the someone from The Favorite is behind it, and this show very much reminds me of The Favorite at points. Again, all of that just seems like the show is in really great hands for sure. I think the fact that it's going to be a TV show and not a movie as well is a very wise choice because there's so much more they can delve into here. Between Elle Fanning and Nicholas Holt's great casting and the probably, I think, hopefully really great writing here, I just think this has so much potential behind it. Out of all the shows that are coming out in the summer, The Great is one of those ones where I really don't see much I really don't see much downside in it at all. I really don't see a lot of ways that this show could fail, unless it's just, like, not funny or something, which would be unfortunate. This is from only one of the writers of The Favorite, so there is that concern that maybe because he's not with Deborah Davis that it won't be as funny because those two worked better together. But again, he was one of the people that contributed to that script, so I feel like that's not going to be the case here. We already know how great Nicholas Hoult can be. He was absolutely one of the big comedic standouts of The Favorite, and so the fact that he's in here also just has me very excited. And again, there's so much that I think the show is going to do well. I'm so excited to see how the show turns out, and I hope it also isn't just a comedy, though. I hope it does actually give us a pretty good portrayal of what Catherine the Great had to deal with and things like that. I'm excited to see how they do go about that as well. So yeah, I just think there's massive potential in this show. It absolutely looks like one of the most entertaining and probably one of the best shows of the year. So definitely The Great very much belongs at number 4.
You bet I got a dream. And I'm not the only one. A Hollywood dream, that's everybody's dream.
Like I told you guys before, The Politician Season 2 would not be the only appearance of Ryan Murphy on this list, and look, Hollywood definitely is at a little bit higher than you guys might have expected, yes, but this show, from the second I heard about it, I was all in. The idea of Ryan Murphy going back to classic Hollywood, which is probably my favorite period of Hollywood. It's just the golden age of it, when it was looked at as basically the main thing in the entertainment industry. You know, everyone wanted to be them. They were very much these huge movie stars and things like that. You know, it's an era that we're never going to be able to replicate, but it is safe to say there was a lot of problematic stuff going on there. There were a lot of people that were oppressed, and so seeing him go in there and basically doing this revisionist history sort of approach, yes, it is a very risky idea, but it's one that I think Murphy is going to handle very well here. The idea that you have someone like Laura Harrier's character, who normally would not have gotten the would not have gotten the recognition that she does get in this, that she's going to get in this show, I think is really going to be something great. I think it's going to be a really great story about what could have happened if we were a little less, sexist, if we were a little less racist than we were back then. How could things have maybe played out differently? And I think that's a really great idea for sure. So you also just have such a fantastic cast here, from Darren Criss to Samara Weaving to Jim Parsons, who looks like he's playing a role that he's really never played before. This, like, really slimy and unlikable, like, producer who was a real guy and was, I heard, just as unlikable in real life. So I'm excited to see what he does here. Seeing Patti LuPone on a consistent basis as well, I mean, just that gets the theater nerd in me very excited for sure. Very excited to see what she's going to do here. Again, Laura Harrier as well. Just a really, really stellar cast all across the board. So many talented actors here, and I think it's going to be a show that has a lot to say about Hollywood, but also maybe even apply that to modern Hollywood with like whitewashing and things like that. Because yeah, there still is a bit of a bias there that we do still see. Every single year at the Oscars, people say that actors and actresses are not being as regarded, that there are, certain actors and actresses that are not being as recognized as they should. People of color, people of different ethnicities, and so people who are, different sexualities. And so I think that's going to be something that this show touches upon very well for sure. I just think there's so much that the show can do well. I have a lot of faith in Ryan Murphy here. When he takes on projects like this, most of the time they're very successful, and I think especially this being a miniseries, which is really where he seems to thrive the most. I mean, you look at American Crime Story, you look at Feud, those absolutely are his best shows, and both of those were miniseries, and this one is too, so I don't really see how the show can turn out all that well. I know the reviews so far have been pretty mixed, but I think this is a show that I'm very much going to love. I feel like this show is very much made for me in that way, and there's, again, I say it before, Ryan Murphy is one of the best visionaries out there, and though he can get a little carried away with his style, when he's doing what he wants to do, when he really is firing on all cylinders, he's absolutely one of the best out there. And so I feel like this show he's incredibly passionate about. I think he definitely does have a very good vision for it. And so because of that, I'm just really excited to see what he does have to offer here. And hopefully this is the great kickoff to summer TV that I really think it could be. So definitely for all those reasons, Hollywood is very much at number 3. And even the way they make fun of certain things in the show, like the line at the end with Jim Parsons' character making fun of someone that didn't recognize Vivian Lee, just little jokes like that. I think that Murphy knows that people who are into that period of history are very much going to watch this show, and so if the show has little in-jokes like that, I think that's really going to entertain me as well, because I've seen a lot of movies from that era as well, so I'm excited to see what he really does have to offer there as well.
To do the job.
The way I see it, there's what's legal, and there's what's right.
Now, full disclosure, I am not that familiar with the original show that this is based upon. I know that it very much was considered like the first like big like serialized like crime drama and things like that. And so the fact that we are just now getting a reboot of this show, which isn't technically a reboot, it's more of a mini series and kind of like probably a more like grounded story than the one from the original. It's probably something different entirely. But it also is a show that's taking place, I think, a few decades before the original show. Now, it's not like it's a prequel or something like that, but this iteration of Perry Mason, I believe the original show, it came out in the 50s, and I believe it took place in the 50s, whereas this is taking place during the Great Depression, and I feel like there's a lot of potential there because, there was so much crime going on within that time, and you can have a lot going on with Perry Mason as a character, but also it's very much the subject of, again, something that we're seeing a lot of recently, and that's like 1930s LA, and I don't know what the obsession with it is lately. Penny Dreadful's doing it, Hollywood's doing it, and now Perry Mason's doing it, but the thing that Perry Mason is doing differently from all these others is that it really seems like it's trying to be sort of like paying homage to classic film noirs in that way, and things like LA Confidential and even older things, like ones like the Maltese Falcon or something like that. Like, it really seems like it's going to do a really good job of finding a way to do something different, but also finding a way to pay tribute to what's already worked. And Matthew Rhys as well is one of the most overlooked actors in Hollywood right now. Having him in the lead role, I feel like he never gets the credit that he really does deserve. And I feel like here, I know he's won an Emmy for like The Americans and things like that, but even at that, that people talked more about Kerry Russell than they really did Matthew Rhys, and so I like the fact that he really is getting a chance to shine here. I know that Robert Downey Jr. was originally supposed to play this role, and he dropped out, but I feel like Matthew Rhys is definitely a good choice. I think he definitely is going to fill his shoes very well, but also having Tatiana Maslany and Shea Wiggum and John Lithgow in here, just a really stellar cast overall. I'm excited to see the way they really do go about it. Again, the case that he's going on, I'm not entirely sure about. The trailer didn't really give us a hint of like what the case is really going to be, but just everything about this seems like something that's right up my alley. Once again, HBO just dipping their feet in another limited series. Usually a really good sign. Just you have HBO and limited series attached to it. Most of the time, it's going to turn out really great, and so I feel like that's another example of just how good this show is really going to be. I think this is absolutely going to be one of the best shows of the entire year, and just everything about it just seems like a show that's right up my alley. Correct me if I'm wrong, I thought this was supposed to be on HBO Max originally, but I guess that's not the case anymore. But either way, I think the show just has so much potential. Again, I wish I had more to say about how it looks compared to the original, but hey, maybe I'll watch some episodes of the original before this, just so I have a little bit more of an idea of what this show is trying to base itself upon. But either way, I'm hyped. I can't wait to see the way this show turns out, and I just feel like it has massive potential behind it. And like I said, it's a show that's very much right up my alley. I really do think it looks like one of the best shows of the year, but it still does not look quite as good as my number one show, which from the moment this show came out, I knew was absolutely going to be my number one, and that, of course, is...
There are people who are depending on that club. This is all I got. You understand? This is it. Wish you sung like that last night.
Fuck you.
Look, I may just be very overly optimistic when it comes to this show, but I'm telling you, the second that I saw the teaser for the Eddie, I knew from the second this is going to be the show of the summer. Mark my words. I really do think that this show has the potential to be that big show of the summer that everyone talks about, that people who weren't even that interested are going to jump onto. I really do feel like this show has that staying power. I mean, let's think about it. It's about this guy who runs this jazz club, used to be this like big like musician, but now he's like really struggling and things like that. And not only that, some of the episodes are directed by the one Damien Chazelle. So that alone has me very excited. But then you factor in the cast here of Andre Holland and Amanda Stenberg and the crime drama element to it, and the fact that the whole thing is going to be on Netflix. Just everything about this seems like it's going to be right up my alley. And I think a lot of people's alley. I think the show seems like it's going to be extremely bingeable in that way. And there's so much they can touch upon here as well, where the fact that he is in Paris and the fact that he is struggling there and all the people that he's working with. Joanna Kulig's character, who I'm so excited to see in something else. You know, I loved her in Cold War, and I'm so excited to see what she has to offer in this show. I think she's going to be absolutely fantastic. And I've been itching to see her in more things. And so the fact that she's involved with this as well has me very excited. But then just the entire premise of the show seems really great, and the music element to it, what they're really going to do with this whole story. I just think there is so much potential here. Everything about this show seems like it's going to work, but it also is a very different kind of project for Chazelle to attach himself to, because it's not necessarily about dreams. And I know he's not the only person involved in it. He's only directed a couple episodes, but it's not necessarily about a man who has dreams. It's about a man that's actually lost his passion, and he's trying to, you know, hold on to what he has, which is different from what we've really seen before. And that's what I think is so great about someone like Damien Chazelle, someone that's always trying to push himself, someone that's always trying to do something different. And so while that jazz element is still there, this is not just La La Land again. It's significantly different from that, and I that's what I really do like about, at least it seems like that from the looks of the show. It definitely seems like it's going to be something very different, something a lot darker, something a lot grittier, something that is going to be a lot more personal in that way. And I'm just really excited to see how this show is going to turn out. I just think this has so much potential behind it, from the cinematography to the score, which I believe is all original music, which is amazing. And I can't wait to see how that turns out. The acting here looks amazing. The whole story of what's going on, I'm very compelled by. Every single time I watch this trailer, it's one of those shows where I just wish that I could watch it instantly, and that's when you know that this show, that's when you know that's when you know the show is very much going to be a hit. I really do think this is going to be, like I said, the big show of the summer. I think everyone's really going to be talking about this one, and I think it's really going to turn people on to someone like Damien Chazelle. There's some people who I don't think have been exposed to his work yet, that maybe aren't as into movies as much, and they watch this and they'll want to see more stuff from him. And Jack Thorne as well, who is very much the creator. I don't want to discredit him either, because he's like the main, he's like the main person that's like helming this whole thing. So I feel like the show just has massive potential behind it. I can't wait to see the way it's going to go. Everything about it just seems like it's going to be an instant hit for sure. And this is the kind of show I feel like that Netflix really does need right now. The one take shot alone in that teaser of him entering the club, and even though there wasn't that much to it, even not knowing what the premise was about, it just seemed very thrilling. I really found myself getting invested in what was happening there, and if I can get that invested just from like a minute teaser, that's just like a one take shot and that's it, like just a tracking shot and that's it, I can't imagine what this show is going to deliver. So, yeah, this is absolutely a show that I am so endlessly hyped for. Absolutely most anticipated of the entire year, for sure. And definitely very much belongs at my #1 most anticipated show of summer 2020. And overall, guys, that's it. I know there wasn't quite as much television as usual. I wish there was more that I could talk about. I wish there was a lot more stuff that wasn't as unknown to people. But again, working with what we have, I feel like we're still in for a really good summer of TV for sure. I'm definitely excited for what it does have to offer. But that's really it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. As usual, let me know what shows you guys are most looking forward to this summer. I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot more TV watching, because we're all in quarantine right now and we don't know how long this is gonna last, obviously. But either way, guys, for this video, hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.